You found the frequency. The static is clearing. You are locked in to Somber Signals FM. I'm your host, Uncle Hertz. We're broadcasting live from the void, and tonight the signal is particularly heavy. Before we descend into the darkness, I need to know who is brave enough to be here. Look at your clock. Now look out your window. Drop a comment right now. Where are you listening from? And exactly what time is it? Let's hope you aren't alone. Tonight's broadcast explores a terrifying reality that spans from the colonial halls of Yogyakarta to the lush ravines of Ubud and the fog-choked curves of the Cipularang toll road. As I look through these accounts, a chilling silver lining emerges. The danger isn't just in what you see, it's in how you respond. Our witnesses tonight learned the hard way that silence isn't just golden, it's survival. But here is the piece of trivia that should keep you awake until the final sign-off. In every one of these encounters, the entity didn't just appear, it left a physical mark that followed the witness home, thousands of miles across the globe. What is the one thing you must never do if you hear a rhythmic sobbing sound outside your door? Stay tuned until the very end, because the answer might be the only thing that keeps the tapping off your window tonight. Make sure you subscribe and hit that like button. Think of it as offering a little protection against what's waiting in the dark. Are your doors locked? Good. Let the signal in.
I've always been a skeptic. I'm a science teacher. Or I was a science teacher. I deal in biology, physics, cause and effect. If there's a noise, there's a source. If there's a shadow, there's a light blocking it. That's how I live my life. Until Yogyakarta. So I was working at this international school in Yogya, prestigious place. I won't name it, but if you know the city, you probably know the building. It's this massive, sprawling colonial structure, Dutch architecture, thick white walls, high ceilings, red tile roofs. Beautiful during the day, but at night, it felt like a tomb. Which makes sense because the locals love to remind us that it used to be a Dutch military hospital in the 1940s. I stayed late a lot. The Wi-Fi in my course, my boarding house, was terrible, so I'd stay in my classroom to grade papers and download movies. My classroom was on the second floor of the old wing. It was, I think, a Thursday. Yeah, Thursday night, November, rainy season. If you've never been to Java in the rainy season, you don't know rain. It's like the sky is falling. Just a constant heavy drum beat on the roof. It drowns out everything. It was about 9 p.m. The cleaning staff had gone home. The admin staff was gone. It was just me and the Satpam, the security guard, who stays down at the front gate about 200 meters away. I was grading a biology quiz. And then I heard it. Click, clack, click, clack. Footsteps. But not just any footsteps. It was the distinct sharp sound of hard-soled high heels hitting the tile floor. I froze. My pen hovered over the paper. The sound was coming from the hallway, just walking. Steady, confident. My first thought wasn't ghosts. My first thought was, oh, Ibu Sarah is still here. She was the headmistress. She always wore these loud heels. I looked at my watch. 9:15 p.m. Weird for her to be here, but maybe she forgot something. I yelled out, "Evening, Sarah." Silence. The footsteps stopped. Instantly. No answer. I waited. I thought, Okay, maybe she didn't hear me over the rain. I went back to grading. 5 minutes later, click, clack, click, clack. Closer this time, louder. I stood up. I walked to the classroom door. It has this little rectangular glass window in it, and I looked out into the hallway. The hallway is long, dimly lit, just these flickering fluorescent tubes. There was no one there.
I looked both ways. The hallway ends in a dead end on the left and the stairs are on the right. If someone had walked down there, I would have seen them. I told myself, okay, it's the acoustics. This is an old building. Sound carries. It's probably the pipes expanding in the rain. I sat back down, but the vibe in the room had changed. You know that feeling when the air pressure drops before a storm? It felt like that, but inside. My ears popped, and then the smell hit me. It wasn't a bad smell exactly, not at first. It smelled like camphor, you know, mothballs, that strong chemical smell your grandmother's closet has. It was thick, it burned my nose, and underneath the mothballs there was something else, something earthy, like fresh dirt, like a grave that had just been dug up in the rain. I started packing my bag. I was done. I didn't care about the grading. I just wanted to get out. As I was shoving my laptop into my bag, the sound started again, but it wasn't footsteps this time. It was crying, sobbing, but it sounded wrong. Have you ever heard a recording played backward? It was like that. The inhales were too sharp. The pitch went up when it should have gone down. It was this rhythmic sucking sound. And it was right outside the door. I froze. I was standing by my desk, staring at the little glass window in the door. The hallway lights were on, so the glass was dark from my side. It acted like a mirror. I could see my own reflection. I looked pale, terrified. And then I saw, behind my reflection, through the glass, out in the hallway, there was a shape. It was blurry, white, just a mass of white fabric, but it wasn't standing on the floor. My reflection is about 5'10". This thing, its head was near the top of the door frame. It was hovering. It was just floating there, about a foot off the ground. I couldn't move. My feet were glued to the floor. I watched as this mass of white slowly drifted closer to the glass. I couldn't see a face. It was just hair, long, wet black hair hanging down, covering everything. And then the door handle. Rattle. The metal handle slammed down hard, like someone was trying to break it. Clack, clack, clack. The door was locked. Thank God. I always locked it. I backed up. I knocked my chair over. Bang. The rattling stopped immediately. Silence. I stood there for, 10 minutes? An hour? Just staring at that door. The smell of mothballs was so strong I was getting dizzy. Finally, the rain stopped. And with the rain gone, I felt, a tiny bit of courage. I grabbed my bag. I grabbed a metal ruler from my desk, like that was gonna help, and I threw the door open. I sprinted. I didn't look left, I didn't look right, I just ran for the stairs. But as I ran, I saw the floor. The hallway floor was tiled, clean white tile. But right outside my door, there were footprints. Muddy, wet, barefoot prints. They didn't lead down the hall, they didn't lead to the stairs. They led from the center of the hallway straight into the solid concrete wall, like she had just walked through the masonry. I ran down the stairs so fast I almost broke my neck. I burst out into the courtyard and ran to the guard post. Pak Joko, the night guard, was sitting there, smoking a Kritek cigarette. He saw me coming, panting, sweating white as a sheet. He didn't jump up. He didn't ask if I was okay. He just looked at me, took a drag of his cigarette, and asked one question. "Did you answer her, mister?" I stared at him. "What?" "The crying," he said. "Did you answer?" I shook my head. No, I didn't say anything." He nodded slowly. "Good. If you answer, she follows you home." I resigned the next week. I broke my contract. I told them it was a family emergency back in Canada. I live in Toronto now. It's cold. It's snowy. There are no colonial hospitals here. But I kept a souvenir. Not on purpose. That jacket I was wearing that night, a denim jacket, I've washed it 5 times. I've dry cleaned it twice. But every time it rains, every time the humidity goes up, I can still smell the mothballs.
I was an architect. German training, Bauhaus principles, form follows function. I believe in concrete, glass, steel. I believe in things you can measure with a laser level. I do not believe in hantu, ghosts. Or at least I didn't. Not until I bought the land in Ubot. You know, when a deal looks too good to be true, it usually is. But I was arrogant. I saw this plot of land, 20 ar, right on the edge of a ravine, overlooking the rice paddies. The price was absurdly low, dirt cheap. The agent, a local guy named Wayan, he was hesitant. He kept looking at the backyard. There was this grove of trees, wild banana trees, pohon pisang. Now, in landscaping, banana trees are messy. They hold water, they attract mosquitoes, they rot quickly. This grove was massive. It was a wall of green that blocked the entire view of the sunset. Wayan told me, "Sir, the locals, we do not cut these trees. The guardian lives there." I rolled my eyes. I literally rolled my eyes at him. I said, "Wayan, I'm buying the view. The trees go." So I bought a chainsaw, a Stiel, top of the line. It was a Sunday afternoon. I decided to do it myself, save the labor cost, get a workout. I went out there, fired up the saw, and started cutting. The trees were thick, wet. If you've never cut a banana tree, it's not like wood. It's fibrous, mushy. I got to the biggest one in the center, the mother tree, I guess. It was huge. I dug the chainsaw in, vroom, and then the glitch. The saw sputtered, and suddenly I was covered in spray. I took my goggles off to wipe them down. I expected sap, milky, sticky white sap. That's what banana trees bleed. It wasn't white. It was red, dark crimson red. It looked like, well, it looked like arterial spray. It was all over my shirt, my hands, the blade of the saw. I stopped the engine. I stood there in the silence. The smell hit me. It didn't smell like plant matter. It smelled like iron, like a slaughterhouse floor.
I rationalized it immediately. Of course I did. I thought, okay, maybe the chainsaw oil reservoir leaked. Maybe it's a specific subspecies of musa with red pigmentation. I washed it off. It stained my skin for days. That night was the first night. I was sleeping in the temporary cabin I'd built on the property. Metal roof, thin walls. Around 2 a.m., thump, Something heavy landed on the roof. Now, we have monkeys in Ubud, macaques. They jump on roofs all the time. But a monkey weighs, 5 kilos? 10 max? This sounded like a sack of wet cement. 50 kilos, easy. Thud. And then dragging. Scrap. Scrape. Like someone dragging a dead leg across the corrugated metal. I went outside with a flashlight. I shone it on the roof. Nothing, just the dents, deep dents in the metal. The next night, it escalated. I woke up to the sound of chickens. Book, 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 book. Right outside my window, loud, frantic clucking. Here's the thing about Indonesian folklore. I looked this up later. If you hear chickens at night and you don't own chickens, it means she is nearby. The Kuntilanak. I don't own chickens. My nearest neighbor is a kilometer away. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, listening to these invisible chickens panic right outside my glass door. And then the smell. It wasn't the iron smell this time. It was heavy flowers, bunga kantil, jasmine, and something else underneath it, something rotting. I eventually fell asleep from sheer exhaustion. When I woke up the next morning, I felt sore. My legs ached. I went to the shower. I looked down at my legs. On my inner thighs, high up, there were bruises. Fingerprints, dark purple bruises, shaped exactly like long, thin fingers, grabbing me. I felt violated, dirty. I scrubbed my skin until it bled. I decided then and there I was selling. I didn't care about the money. I was done. But I had to go back to the backyard one last time to collect my tools.
It was dusk. Maghrib, that time of day when the light goes grey and flat. I walked out to the stump, the big stump of the tree I had cut. Someone was sitting on it, a woman. She was wearing a dirty white dress. Her back was to me. She had long black hair that went all the way down to the dirt. She was hunched over, rocking back and forth. I saw her shoulders moving. She was holding something in her lap, a bundle of rags. I froze. I couldn't speak. My throat locked up. I watched her for what felt like forever. And then she stopped rocking. She knew I was there. She didn't stand up. She didn't turn her body. She turned her head, just her head. Slowly, creak, snap, crack. She turned her neck a full 180 degrees, bones grinding, until she was looking faced backward at me. Her face was pale, dead, but her mouth was stained red, the same red sap from the tree. But that wasn't the worst part. Because she was turned around, I could see her back. The back of her dress was torn open, and in the middle of her back there was a hole, a gaping, rotting hole into her rib cage. I could see the organs pulsing inside, maggots moving in the cavity. She smiled at me. Her teeth were black. She whispered one word, Sakit. It means it hurts. I ran. I left the tools. I left the chainsaw. I got in my car and I drove until I hit Denpasar. I flew out the next morning. I sold the land to a developer from Jakarta. I took a huge loss. I didn't care. 2 weeks ago, I got a WhatsApp message from the new owner. He said, "Hey, thanks for the deal. By the way, my workers found something in the attic of the cabin. Did you leave a white dress up there?" I blocked his number. I blocked him immediately. I never had an attic. There was no attic in that cabin. I live in Berlin now, concrete city, no banana trees. But sometimes when I buy fruit at the market, if I smell a banana that's a little too ripe, I get those bruises on my legs again. They just appear.
If you Google Cipularang toll road, the first thing you see are the accident statistics. It's a nightmare, especially that stretch between Jakarta and Bandung. But if you scroll down, past the news reports, you start seeing the other stuff. The forums, the folklore, the stories about Kilometer 97. I'm a logistics manager. I deal in supply chains, delivery windows, hard data. I don't deal in ghost stories. And as a woman working in this industry, I've always had to be the practical one, the one who doesn't get rattled. I always told my drivers, you crash because you're tired, not because a spirit pushed your truck. I owe every single one of those drivers an apology. This happened last Tuesday. I was driving a rental back to Jakarta, a sturdy SUV. I felt safe in it. It was about 11 p.m. The fog. God, the fog in those mountains is unlike anything I've ever seen. It doesn't fall from the sky, it rolls up from the valleys. It's thick. You can feel it pushing against the windshield. I was the only car on the road. I had the doors locked. I always do when I drive alone at night. And I was listening to a true crime podcast, just trying to stay alert. And then I hit KM 97. Dead. Everything died. The engine cut out. The dashboard went black. The power steering locked up. Even the podcast just cut to silence. It wasn't a mechanical failure. A mechanical failure makes noise. This was absolute silence. It was like someone reached into the universe and unplugged my car. I managed to muscle the steering wheel over and coast onto the shoulder. I sat there for a second. My hands were gripping the wheel so hard my knuckles hurt. My first thought wasn't ghosts. My first thought was trap. You hear stories, about bandits disabling cars, about decoys. My heart was hammering against my ribs. I checked my phone. 0 bars, of course. I was staring out into the pitch black, trying to see if anyone was coming, when I saw her. In the rearview mirror, about 50 yards back, standing on the shoulder of the highway, a woman. She was just standing there, hitchhiking, thumb out. Now, my brain, my rational brain, tried to make sense of it. I thought, oh God, poor girl, she must be stranded too. But then the darker thought crept in. Is she a decoy? Is there a man hiding in the bushes, waiting for me to unlock the doors? I double-checked the locks. Click, click. I watched her in the mirror. She wasn't moving. She was wearing white, a long white dress. It looked wet, heavy. I looked down to try my phone again, praying for a signal, and when I looked back up at the mirror, she was gone. Vanished. I thought, okay, she jumped the guardrail, she's gone, stay in the car, do not get out. But then the temperature dropped. I'm not talking a draft, I'm talking freezing. Instantly, my breath started fogging up inside the car. The windows frosted over from the inside, and then the radio turned on. The car was dead. The battery was dead, but the radio lit up bright blue. It wasn't music. It was static, white noise, screaming static. And underneath the static, a laugh. Hee 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 hee. It was high-pitched, piercing. It sounded like a woman laughing, but distorted, like it was vibrating inside my teeth. I was mashing the power button, crying, "Stop it, stop it, stop it!" Then the static stopped, and I heard a sound that made my blood run cold. Thump. On the hood of the car, I looked through the windshield. Handprints. Black, oily handprints. They were appearing on the glass. Slap, slap, slap. But they weren't random. They were walking. They started at the bottom of the windshield and they were hand walking up towards the roof. And the fingers, God, the fingers were so long, too many joints. I couldn't scream. I was paralyzed. I just watched these black prints climb up the glass right over my face. When the prints reached the top of the windshield, the roof buckled, crunch, directly above my head. The metal roof dented inwards, deep, like a bowling ball had been dropped on it. Something heavy was on top of the car, and it was shifting its weight. Creak. I unbuckled my seatbelt. I scrambled into the passenger seat, trying to get away from the driver's side roof. I was sobbing now, and then the head appeared. She hung over the front windshield, upside down. She was looking at me through the glass. Her hair, gravity didn't apply to her hair. It didn't hang down. It floated around her head like she was underwater. Her face was pale, gray. Her eyes were just holes, black pits. But she was smiling. She tapped on the glass. Tap, 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 with a long, dirty fingernail. She mouthed something. I couldn't hear it, but I saw her lips move. Buka. Open. She wanted me to open the door. That broke the paralysis. I screamed. I threw myself back into the driver's seat and slammed my hand on the horn. Beep! Wait, the horn worked? The power was back? I twisted the key. The engine roared to life. The headlights flashed on. As soon as the lights hit the fog, the weight on the roof vanished. Poof. Gone. The dent popped back out with a sickening metallic boing. I didn't wait. I didn't look. I floored it. I merged into traffic without checking. I almost clipped a truck. I drove 100 all the way to the city limits, crying the entire way. I pulled into a rest area about 20 miles later. There was a truck driver there, older guy. He saw me get out. I must have looked insane, mascara running down my face, shaking, hyperventilating. He walked over. He looked concerned. He didn't ask if I was hurt. He walked straight to the front of my car. He shone his flashlight on the windshield. I looked. There were no handprints. The glass was clean. The driver looked at me. He had this look of pity. He patted the hood of the car and said, "You are lucky, Neng." That's like miss in Sundanese. I said, "Lucky? Why?" He pointed to the roof of the car. I looked up. There were no dents. The metal was smooth. But there was something else. Scratched into the paint, deep, down to the metal, were scratches. Dozens of them. Long, jagged scratches, like someone had been trying to claw their way in. I don't drive to Bandung anymore. I take the train. But sometimes, when I'm alone in my apartment and it's quiet, I hear tapping on the window. Tap, tap, tap. I live on the 30th floor.